Okay, this is Kerry Martell of RVLivingGuide.com. I'll be your guide to adventure. I'm creating a video that's going to show how to make a Mulligan style stew. It's also called a hobo stew. It's basically a type of stew that's an Irish stew that's been created, used commonly by people that lived during the Great Depression. But of course, people still make these type of stews anyway, especially if you're broke. I find them to be very ideal as a trucker food because it's using items that doesn't need refrigeration, so it's just mostly canned, pre-cooked stews already, so it actually greatly reduces the time that you spend cooking it. But you can also use it for boondocking as a full-time RVer as well. I've got a couple different things here, but one of the defining traits of a Mulligan type of stew is that you just have assorted items. It's whatever you can scrounge up. With my recipe, there's no cooking required, really. It's mostly just reheating things, but I am going to be reheating them together as a single unit, which will change some of the taste of the individual items together. What I have here is I have a can of whole kernel corn, I have a can of Spam, I have a can of diced tomatoes. In this case, it actually has some green peppers and celery and onions in there. I have a can of cut green beans, a can of pork and beans, I've got a can of mushrooms, and I've got a can of fresh cut sliced potatoes. I also have, for some flavoring, I've got some ketchup packets and some mustard packets as well. You can have these as a regular bottle, of course, but you can also just get these for free at fast food restaurants, which is what I tend to do, so I don't have to pay for ketchup and mustard. I really don't use it that commonly, but I am going to use it for this stew as an example of how you can very cheaply spice it up. I'm also going to use one bag of Doritos as a type of thickening agent for the stew. Also, I have pepper and I have salt. All you'll need for this is one pot and a lid for that pot. I should mention that you don't have to specifically use Spam. You can also use other types of meats. For example, I have a can of roast beef here, but I'm not going to use it for this example. I'm going to use the Spam instead. Okay, I've now opened up all my cans, and how I'm going to do this is I'm going to dump the soups into the pot first and let these get up and heated before I add the more solid stuff. Again, all of these items have been already cooked. There's really no reason to have to cook them separately like you normally would. For example, the potatoes, if you were making this from scratch, you would need to boil the potatoes separately, drain that water and dump it. And you'd also want to cook, like your corns and your beef and your beans and things like that separately as well. You would definitely have to cook your sausages separately too, but there's really no point in doing that when it's already been pre-cooked. But we are going to heat up the items that will get it to a boil and sizzle a little bit faster before we add more of the solids. So turn on my gas and turn down just a little bit. Great. And while this heats up, I'm going to work on slicing up the Spam. And we have our can of Spam. Spam is just a bunch of mixture of chicken and pork, and it's kind of a type of sausage, I suppose, is one way to look at it. You can grill Spam the same way you can a sausage, but in this case I'm not going to do that. Some people like to grill their Spam. I don't really care for Spam in particular, so it doesn't really matter if it's grilled or not. It's just a little bit of extra effort for something that I don't care that much for to begin with. But Spam is definitely a core part of making a Mulligan hobo type of stew. This is why I'm choosing to use it in this example. Some people really like Spam though. They'll have Spam on crackers and so forth. Anyway, so the idea is to cut it up into pieces for your stew. And that's basically the concept behind it. And then we're going to add it to the stew once it gets to a bit of a boil, along with the other ingredients. Now, I should say that, even though I don't particularly care for Spam, it's not that I hate it. As an example, I'm going to eat some right now. Yep. It's Spam. I don't really hate Spam. It's definitely a type of sausage. It's just not the best tasting sausage. But if you're going to store, meat for a long time, Spam is very useful for that purpose. What you often find with cooking is that there's always a trade-off. With canned food, it's already pre-cooked, it stores really well. But the reason it stores really well is because it has a lot of salt in it, which is one of the reasons why I tend to drain out the water that's in the vegetables, so that I don't use that in the stew itself. There's going to be plenty of salt in what's already in the soups that I'm reheating here. Okay, that's getting pretty good. I'm going to let it boil just a little bit more, and then I will add the ingredients. Okay, I think that's it's going okay. It was a little bit bubbly here, more than it was before I took the lid off, but that's good enough. I'm going to add the potatoes. Again, these are already pre-cooked anyway, so there's no need to have to cook them. Add the beans. I'm going to add my corn. And we're going to add the Spam. Make sure I get it all in there with one hand. Okay, we got everything in here, so we're going to mix it up a little bit. And it's going to be able to blend together a little bit while it heats up, which will improve the taste of everything and make it very edible. Now, I mentioned before I have a bag of Doritos. Potato chips are a very versatile spicing agent for making cooking, and a lot of people underrate potato chips. You could definitely use them as a thickening agent as well. So what you do is just, you're going to have it in the bag, and you're going to grind up the bag, get it all nice and little bit, and then I'm going to add it to the stew. Then we're going to mix it in a little bit. Just like so. Now I'm going to add a little bit of mustard, one of these little packets. And that's going to add a little bit more spice to it as well. I'm going to add actually a second packet as well to it. Add some ketchup, because ketchup has more sugar in it, so it is a little bit different than just having the tomatoes themselves. And I'm also going to add some black pepper. I can't do the black pepper with one hand while holding my phone, so I'll have to do that off video. You can kind of see that I've added the black pepper to the top of the stew. I'm going to mix it up a little bit, and I am kind of got a good boil going on here. My pot is just large enough, barely, to contain everything. But it shows what you can do even with small amount of resources. And look at that. That is looking good. Yes. So, hobo stew. Again, you can use a lot of different ingredients. It's basically whatever you have available to you. But even with a couple of common items you can find at any supermarket and a lot of gas station supermarkets, to be honest, you can make a pretty tasty stew and flavor it using some very common items such as Doritos and sauce packets. You can also add hot sauce packets as well. I'm not a big fan of hot sauce personally, so I haven't added it, but a lot of people like to add hot sauce packets to their stew. Okay, now I'm going to get myself a nice bowl of some stew. And yeah, there you go. Oh, I figured people might actually want to see me eat the stew, so bon appetit. Got thin spam. So much improves the taste of the spam. Really does. Really does. It's pretty tasty. Really, really tasty. Gotta try it if you ever get a chance. Again, I'm Kerry Martell, author of RVLivingGuide.com. If you want to see more videos like this from my channel, I got a couple other recipes available, and of course lots of other advice on the website itself. Like and subscribe if you want to see more content. Cheers.